History books tell us about kings, empires, and ancient civilizations. But what if there's a chapter we've been missing? Could mysterious structures like the pyramids, Nazca Lines, or Stonehenge be proof that extraterrestrials visited Earth thousands of years ago? Today, we're solving the mystery that scientists, archaeologists, and historians have debated for decades. Welcome back to your channel name, the place where we unravel the world's greatest mysteries. In this video, we'll explore one of the most controversial questions in history. Did ancient aliens visit Earth thousands of years ago? From strange artifacts to unexplained technologies, we'll uncover clues that might rewrite everything we know about human civilization. When we talk about the possibility of extraterrestrials visiting Earth thousands of years ago, the first thing we need to understand is something known as the ancient astronaut theory. This idea has fascinated researchers, historians, and conspiracy theorists for decades, and it raises one big, controversial question. Could beings from other worlds have influenced the rise of human civilization? It's a question that takes us deep into the mysteries of our past, forcing us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about history. The ancient astronaut theory first gained mainstream attention in the 1960s, largely thanks to a book called Chariots of the Gods, written by Erich von Däniken. In this book, von Däniken suggested that many of the world's ancient monuments, artifacts, and myths could be explained if we entertained the possibility that advanced extraterrestrial visitors had come to Earth in the distant past. He argued that what ancient people described as gods descending from the sky might actually have been beings from another planet, arriving in technology so advanced that early humans simply interpreted it as divine or magical. Think about it. In nearly every ancient civilization, whether it's in Mesopotamia, Egypt, Mesoamerica, or India, we find references to powerful beings who came from the sky, taught humanity advanced knowledge, and then returned to the heavens. Ancient texts talk about flying chariots, skyboats, and even beings with helmets and strange suits descending to Earth. Could all of these be mere myths? Or were our ancestors recording encounters with something they couldn't fully understand? Supporters of the ancient astronaut theory point to the fact that many of these ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and with no known contact between them, often describe similar stories. For example, in Sumerian mythology, we have the Anunnaki, sky gods who supposedly came to Earth to create or influence humanity. In ancient Indian texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, there are vivid descriptions of flying machines called vimanas used in epic battles. Similarly, in South American cultures, we have depictions of sky beings and legends of gods who came from above to teach agriculture, astronomy, and architecture. What makes this even more intriguing is that these myths often come with precise astronomical knowledge that seems impossible for people of that era to have discovered on their own. How did ancient civilizations know about the movements of planets, the exact timing of eclipses, or even the concept of a heliocentric solar system thousands of years before modern science confirmed it? Could it be that someone or something with advanced knowledge shared it with them? Proponents of the theory argue that early humans would have had no framework to understand spacecraft, astronauts, or advanced technology. Imagine a tribal society seeing a rocket or aircraft for the first time thousands of years ago. They might describe it as a flaming chariot or a dragon descending from the heavens because that's the only language they had. This is why, according to the theory, so many ancient stories describe gods coming from the sky with fire and smoke or using weapons of light that sound eerily similar to modern technology. Another compelling point is the timing of humanity's technological leaps. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived as simple hunter-gatherers. Then, almost overnight in historical terms, civilizations began to develop writing, mathematics, agriculture, astronomy, and monumental architecture. The Sumerians, often called the first advanced civilization, appeared around 4000 BCE with fully developed systems of law, literature, and science. Where did all this knowledge come from so suddenly? Was it simply human ingenuity, or did outside visitors give us a push? Even the way ancient art depicts some of these so-called gods raises eyebrows. In rock carvings, sculptures, and paintings, we sometimes see figures wearing what looks like helmets, suits, or even breathing apparatus. Ancient astronauts theorists claim these are not crowns or ceremonial dress, but early humans trying to replicate the image of beings in spacesuits. Critics argue this is a stretch, but the resemblance is striking enough to keep the debate alive. The theory also suggests that some of the grandest architectural achievements in history might not have been possible with the tools available at the time. Take the pyramids of Giza, for instance. Built around 2500 BCE, these massive structures consist of millions of limestone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. Even with today's technology, constructing them with such precision would be a monumental challenge. Could ancient humans have done this entirely on their own, or were they following instructions from visitors with advanced engineering knowledge? Of course, mainstream archaeologists and historians argue that human innovation, combined with centuries of trial and error, can explain these accomplishments. They point to evidence of early tools, engineering techniques, and massive labor forces as proof that humans were capable of incredible feats. But supporters of the ancient astronaut theory counter that while humans built the structures, the knowledge behind the design and purpose might have come from elsewhere. And that brings us to one of the most debated questions in this entire discussion. If extraterrestrials did visit Earth thousands of years ago, why did they leave, or did they ever really leave at all? Some theorists suggest that these beings came to guide humanity, to teach, and perhaps even to manipulate our development before disappearing, promising to return one day. Others think they might still be watching us from a distance, waiting for the right moment to make contact again. When we begin exploring the idea of extraterrestrial visitors in our distant past, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence people point to is the existence of mysterious ancient structures scattered across the globe. These are not ordinary ruins or forgotten temples. We're talking about colossal monuments, perfectly aligned stone formations, and breathtaking feats of engineering that seem almost impossible for ancient civilizations to have achieved with the tools and knowledge they supposedly had. It raises the question, were our ancestors receiving help from advanced beings, or were they simply far more ingenious than we've ever given them credit for? Let's start with the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Built over 4,500 years ago, these pyramids have stood the test of time, surviving earthquakes, storms, and centuries of human activity. The Great Pyramid itself consists of millions of limestone and granite blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons each, stacked with such precision that even modern engineers debate how it was done. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly square, with sides aligned closely to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. How did a civilization with no modern surveying equipment manage this level of accuracy? Even more intriguing, the Great Pyramid's dimensions seem to encode advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge, including the approximate length of the solar year and even the curvature of the Earth. Did the ancient Egyptians figure all this out on their own? Or were they following instructions passed down from beings with a far greater understanding of science and the cosmos? Then there's Stonehenge in England, a massive stone circle built around 5,000 years ago. The stones, some weighing up to 25 tons, were transported from as far as 150 miles away. Archaeologists have long debated its purpose. Was it a temple, a burial site, an astronomical observatory? Whatever the answer, the fact remains that Stonehenge is perfectly aligned with the movements of the sun and moon, marking events like the summer solstice with incredible accuracy. Could it be that Stonehenge was not just a ceremonial site, but a kind of ancient astronomical tool, built with knowledge that surpassed what we assume Neolithic people had at the time? Travel thousands of miles to South America, and you find the Nazca Lines in Peru. From the ground, they look like simple pathways etched into the desert floor. But viewed from above, they form massive geoglyphs, some resembling animals like monkeys, birds, and spiders, while others are long, perfectly straight lines stretching for miles. These lines are so vast that they can only be fully appreciated from the air, which raises a puzzling question. Why would an ancient civilization with no known way of flying create images they themselves couldn't see? Some researchers suggest they were ceremonial pathways, while others believe they were astronomical calendars or offerings to the gods. But to ancient astronaut theorists, The Nazca Lines look like something else entirely, runways or landing markers for extraterrestrial visitors descending from the sky. In the highlands of Bolivia, we encounter the site of Pumapunku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. Here, enormous stone blocks are cut with such precision that they fit together like pieces of a modern jigsaw puzzle without the use of mortar. Some blocks have perfectly drilled holes and grooves, as if shaped by advanced machinery rather than primitive tools. The stones themselves weigh dozens of tons and were transported from quarries miles away across rough terrain. Mainstream archaeologists argue that the builders used simple tools and sheer manpower. But proponents of the ancient astronaut theory ask whether it's really so far-fetched to imagine that advanced beings or at least advanced knowledge played a role here. Let's not forget the massive temples and pyramids of Mesoamerica, like Teotihuacan in Mexico and the Maya pyramids of Chichén Itzá. Teotihuacan, often called the City of the Gods, features the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, all laid out in a precise grid pattern. The city's main avenue, known as the Avenue of the Dead, aligns almost perfectly with astronomical events. Even more puzzling, the layout of Teotihuacan seems to mirror the position of planets in our solar system. How did the builders acquire this knowledge? Were they master astronomers, or were they following blueprints given to them by someone else? Across the globe in Cambodia, the temple complex of Angkor Wat is another marvel of ancient engineering. Built in the 12th century, it covers more than 400 acres and features intricate carvings, massive stone towers, and a layout aligned with celestial patterns, including the constellation Draco. The precision and scale of Angkor Wat have led some to wonder whether the Khmer Empire received knowledge from beyond Earth or whether they simply possessed genius we still underestimate today. What ties all these sites together is not just their scale or complexity, but the recurring theme of celestial alignment. Time and again, we see ancient monuments built to track the stars, the solstices, the equinoxes, and planetary movements. Why were early civilizations so obsessed with the heavens? Was it purely for agricultural purposes, or were they honoring beings who came from the skies? For those who support the ancient astronaut theory, the answer seems obvious. These structures were either inspired by or built for visitors from another world, serving as landing sites, messages, or even beacons for their return. When we look at the rise of human civilization, one of the most baffling mysteries isn't just the structures our ancestors left behind, but the sheer amount of knowledge they seem to possess thousands of years ago, knowledge that, according to history books, shouldn't have been possible for people living in such early times. Civilizations like the Sumerians, Egyptians, Mayans, and ancient Indians appeared with advanced understanding of astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and even medicine. How did people who lacked the wheel, iron tools, or writing at certain points develop insights that would still baffle scientists thousands of years later? This is where the ancient astronaut theory raises an eyebrow and asks, did humanity figure all this out alone, or was maybe someone from beyond our planet helping to light the way? Consider ancient astronomy. Across the globe, long before the invention of the telescope, ancient people charted the stars with a level of precision that seems almost impossible. The Sumerians, for example, living over 5,000 years ago, created some of the first known star maps and even had names for planets like Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They knew these were not stars but wandering bodies moving across the sky. How could they have figured this out without modern instruments? Some researchers suggest careful observation over centuries could explain it, but others argue that the accuracy of their knowledge points to something more. These same people created detailed myths describing beings descending from the heavens to teach them about the cosmos. Was this purely symbolic, or were they recording real encounters with advanced visitors? The Dogon tribe of West Africa presents another curious case. For centuries, the Dogon have held sacred knowledge about the Sirius star system, including details about Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible to the naked eye. They described its existence, orbit, and even its density long before modern astronomy confirmed these facts with telescopes in the 20th century. According to Dogon tradition, this knowledge came from beings called the Nommo, who arrived from the sky. Skeptics claim the Dogon might have learned about Sirius B from modern sources before anthropologists studied them, but the tribe insists the knowledge is far older, passed down through generations. If that's true, how did they know so much about a star system they couldn't see? Mathematics, too, seems to appear almost out of nowhere in the ancient world. The Sumerians developed a base 60 number system that gave us the 60-minute hour and the 360-degree circle, concepts we still use today. The Mayans had a sophisticated calendar system that accurately tracked solar and lunar cycles, as well as planetary movements. Their calendar was so precise that it could predict eclipses centuries in advance. How does a so-called primitive society, living in jungles without metal tools, create a calendar rivaling those made with modern technology? And then there's the mystery of ancient medicine. Egyptian papyri detail surgical techniques, wound treatments, and even brain surgery performed thousands of years ago. In India, texts like the Sushruta Samhita, dating back over 2,000 years, describe procedures such as cataract surgery and plastic surgery. Ancient Peruvians practiced successful skull trepanations, drilling holes into the human skull with survival rates modern doctors find impressive given the lack of anesthesia or antibiotics. Did ancient people simply experiment for centuries until they perfected these techniques, or were they taught by someone with advanced knowledge? Another enigma lies in architecture and engineering. Ancient builders somehow understood principles of geometry, weight distribution, and even acoustics long before these concepts were formally defined. The Great Pyramid's dimensions encode mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio. Greek temples like the Parthenon use subtle optical illusions so that columns appear straight and harmonious to the human eye. The Inca in Peru built stone walls so perfectly fitted that even a knife blade can T-slip between the blocks, and they did this without mortar or modern tools. It's as if they possessed engineering knowledge far beyond what we expect for their time. But perhaps the most puzzling aspect of ancient knowledge is the recurring obsession with the stars. From Stonehenge to the pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica, from temples in Cambodia to mounds in North America, countless ancient structures align perfectly with solstices, equinoxes, and specific constellations. Why were early civilizations so focused on the sky? Some argue it was for agricultural purposes, to track planting and harvest seasons. Others believe it was religious, with the stars representing gods or ancestors. Yet ancient astronaut theorists ask a different question. What if these alignments were intentional messages or markers, created under the guidance of beings who came from the very stars our ancestors worshipped? Even ancient myths hint at lost knowledge. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians told of the Anunnaki, sky beings who taught humanity writing, law, and agriculture. In Mesoamerica, the Mayans and Aztecs spoke of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who brought knowledge and then departed, promising to return. In India, the Vedas describe gods traveling in flying machines and wielding weapons that sound eerily like modern technology. Are these just colorful stories or memories of real encounters with someone or something that jump-started human civilization? What makes all this even stranger is how much knowledge seems to have been lost over time. We find traces of advanced mathematics, medicine, and engineering in ancient texts and ruins. Yet entire civilizations collapsed, leaving future generations to rediscover what their ancestors apparently knew thousands of years earlier. It's as if humanity was handed pieces of a puzzle, only to misplace them for centuries before slowly piecing things back together again. When we dive into the mysteries of our past, it's not just the massive monuments or the ancient knowledge that raise eyebrows. Scattered across the world are artifacts that seem completely out of place and out of time. These are items that don't fit neatly into the historical timeline we've been taught. Archaeologists call them out-of-place artifacts or OOP arts, and each one sparks the same burning question. How did people thousands of years ago create objects with technology or knowledge that shouldn't have existed yet? Some say these artifacts prove ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we believe. Others go a step further, suggesting these objects might even point to extraterrestrial influence in humanity's distant past. One of the most famous examples is the Antikythera mechanism, often called the world's first analog computer. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901, this intricate device dates back over 2,000 years. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a corroded lump of bronze and wood. But as researchers studied it, they realized it contained a series of precisely cut gears and dials capable of predicting solar eclipses, lunar phases, and planetary positions decades in advance. This wasn't just a simple calendar. It was a mechanical marvel so complex that nothing like it appeared again for over 1,000 years. How did ancient Greeks develop technology so advanced that it rivals modern engineering principles? And if they possess such knowledge, why don't we see more examples of similar devices from that era? Some suggest it was a lost invention created by a lone genius. Others wonder if the knowledge to build such a device was handed down from someone or something with far greater understanding of astronomy and mechanics than humans were supposed to have at the time. Another perplexing artifact is the Baghdad battery. Discovered in Iraq and dating back to around 200 BCE, it consists of a clay jar with a copper cylinder and an iron rod inside. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, it can generate a small electric charge. Did the ancients invent the world's first battery? If so, what were they using it for? Some theories suggest electroplating jewelry or small objects, while others propose medical or even religious purposes. Skeptics argue it might have been just a simple storage container, but experiments have proven it works as a battery. And that leaves us with the bigger question. Why would a civilization 2,000 years ago need electricity in the first place? Then there are artifacts that suggest the presence of advanced engineering long before it should have been possible. In South America, at the site of Pumapunku in Bolivia, archaeologists have uncovered enormous stone blocks with perfectly straight cuts, precise, right angles, and smooth drill holes, features that seem impossible with the primitive tools we assume ancient builders had. Some of the stones are carved into interlocking shapes resembling modern construction techniques, as if they were prefabricated components for a larger structure. How did people living over 1,000 years ago achieve this level of precision without metal tools or advanced machinery? And what about the so-called airplane artifacts found in Colombia? Small gold objects, dating back over 1,000 years, bear a striking resemblance to modern fighter jets or even space shuttles. At first, archaeologists assumed they were stylized birds or insects, but when engineers examined them, they noticed features like vertical tails, landing gears, and wings shaped for flight-knot features found in birds or insects. Some enthusiasts even built scale models based on these artifacts, and to everyone's surprise, they flew. Were these simply coincidences, or were the ancient artists depicting flying machines they had actually seen? Another mystery lies in the ancient maps, such as the Piri race map created in 1513 by a Turkish admiral. This map famously shows parts of South America and even Antarctica with surprising accuracy centuries before Antarctica was officially discovered. Even more puzzling, the coastline of Antarctica appears without ice, suggesting whoever created the source maps had knowledge of the continent before it froze over thousands of years ago. How could early mapmakers know this unless they had access to information from a much older, perhaps even prehistoric, source? Some argue this knowledge could have come from an advanced lost civilization, while others speculate about the possibility of outside visitors sharing geographical data far beyond what ancient sailors could have gathered on their own. And then there are the crystal skulls, like the Mitchell Hedges skull found in Central America. Carved from a single block of clear quartz, it's so precise that modern tools would struggle to replicate it without leaving marks or imperfections. Legend says it possesses mystical powers, but even setting myths aside, the question remains, how did people centuries ago carve something so intricate without advanced equipment? All around the world, from mysterious metal spheres found in South Africa that appear millions of years old to cave paintings in Australia, showing what look like beings in helmets, these artifacts and images challenge our understanding of history. Mainstream scholars often explain them as coincidences, misinterpretations, or isolated examples of ancient genius. But for those who believe in the ancient astronaut theory, these Objects are potential clues, evidence that either humanity once possessed advanced technology that was later lost, or that visitors from beyond Earth shared it with us for reasons we still don't fully understand. When we look into humanity's oldest stories, one theme appears over and over again: no matter the culture, no matter the continent, powerful beings descending from the sky to interact with humans, teach them, sometimes even rule over them. These myths and legends passed down through generations, recorded in sacred texts and carved into stone, might be dismissed by some as pure imagination or religious symbolism. But what if they are more than that? What if they are memories, fragments of real encounters with beings far beyond the knowledge and power of early human civilizations? That's exactly what ancient astronaut theorists believe, and when you start connecting the dots, it's hard not to wonder whether our ancestors were trying to tell us something extraordinary. Take the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, often credited as the world's first advanced civilization. Their myths speak of the Anunnaki, a group of powerful gods who came from the heavens. According to the ancient texts, the Anunnaki taught humans everything from agriculture to law to writing itself. They were said to have descended in flying ships, lived among humans, and even created humanity by mixing divine essence with earthly creatures. Now, mainstream historians call this mythology, but ancient astronaut theorists ask, were these gods actually extraterrestrial visitors with technology so advanced that early humans could only describe them in the language of divinity? The stories don't stop in Mesopotamia. Travel thousands of miles to India, and you find the Vedic text, some of the oldest sacred writings in the world. In these texts, there are detailed descriptions of flying machines called vimanas, capable of traveling not just across the sky, but between worlds. Epic battles are described with weapons that sound eerily like modern missiles or even nuclear devices, bright flashes of light, firestorms, and destruction on a massive scale. The Mahabharata, one of India's greatest epics, tells of celestial beings descending to Earth, interacting with humans and waging wars in the heavens. Were these simply grand metaphors, or were the ancient writers recording real events witnessed thousands of years ago? Events involving technology far beyond their understanding? In the Americas, similar stories appear among the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas. The Mayans spoke of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, who came from the sky to teach wisdom, astronomy, and agriculture before returning to the stars. The Aztecs had Quetzalcoatl, another feathered serpent deity with almost the exact same story. In the Andes, the Inca revered Viracocha, a bearded god who arrived after a great flood to bring knowledge and rebuild civilization. These gods often promised to return one day, a theme repeated in countless myths around the world. It makes you wonder, were these simply moral tales, or were they describing actual visitors who descended from above, shared knowledge, and then left with the promise of coming back? Even in ancient China, we find references to sky people and heavenly emperors who descended in flying dragons or fiery chariots. Some legends speak of magical pearls of fire falling from the sky, while others describe rulers who came from the stars and returned there after their reigns ended. Similarly, in Africa, the Dogon people tell stories of the Namo, amphibious beings who arrived from the Sirius star system. They were said to have taught the Dogon astronomy, agriculture, and spiritual wisdom. What makes this story particularly fascinating is that the Dogon had knowledge of the Sirius star system, including its invisible companion star, Sirius B, long before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. And then there are the Aboriginal myths from Australia, some of the oldest continuous oral traditions on Earth. These stories speak of the Wandjina, sky beings who came to Earth during the Dreamtime to create the landscape, teach humans laws and customs, and then return to the stars. Rock paintings dating back thousands of years show the Wandjina with large heads, big dark eyes, and no mouths, features that some say resemble modern depictions of extraterrestrials. Across Polynesia, legends tell of gods descending from the heavens in flying canoes. In Greece, the gods of Olympus were said to ride chariots through the sky and wield thunderbolts of unimaginable power. In Norse mythology, the Aesir gods came from Asgard, a realm beyond Earth, traveling through Bifrost, the rainbow bridge that connected their world to ours. Even the Bible contains stories like Ezekiel's vision, where he describes a wheel within a wheel descending from the heavens, surrounded by fire and strange beings, imagery that some believe sounds suspiciously like a spacecraft encounter. What stands out in all these myths is the consistency. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries told stories with strikingly similar themes, sky beings arriving in fiery chariots or flying ships, teaching humanity arts, sciences, and laws, then leaving with promises to return. These weren't isolated tales. They formed the foundations of entire religions and civilizations. Ancient astronaut theorists argue that this consistency is no coincidence. Instead, it points to a shared human memory of encounters with advanced beings early humans could only describe as gods because they had no other frame of reference. And let's not forget the recurring obsession with the stars themselves. These myths often link the sky beings to specific constellations or star systems: Sirius, Orion, the Pleiades. Temples, pyramids, and sacred sites around the world were built to align with these stars, as if honoring the places where the gods came from or perhaps marking them for their return. Were ancient people simply stargazing, or were they mapping the homes of the visitors they claimed brought them knowledge and civilization? Whenever the topic of ancient aliens comes up, it sparks heated debates between believers who see overwhelming evidence of extraterrestrial involvement in our past and skeptics who argue that human ingenuity alone explains these mysteries. Modern science plays a crucial role in this discussion because it forces us to look at the claims through the lens of archaeology, engineering, astronomy, and history. What makes this conversation so fascinating is that even as skeptics debunk certain theories, new discoveries keep raising questions that refuse to go away, leaving room for doubt and curiosity about whether we truly have the full story of our origins. Take the pyramids, for example. Supporters of the ancient astronaut theory often point to their massive scale, precise construction, and mysterious alignment with celestial bodies as signs that advanced knowledge or even extraterrestrial help was involved. Mainstream archaeologists, however, argue that the pyramids were the product of human determination, large labor forces, and clever engineering techniques developed over centuries. They point to evidence of ramps, tools, and workers' villages discovered near the pyramid sites, suggesting that tens of thousands of laborers, not alien technology, built these monuments. Computer simulations have even shown that with enough manpower and basic tools, moving and lifting massive stones was possible, though still extremely challenging. Then there are the Nazca Lines in Peru, massive geoglyphs only visible from the air. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts claim they resemble runways or landing strips for alien spacecraft, but archaeologists have found that the lines can be mapped and planned from surrounding hills, meaning the people who built them didn't need to fly to appreciate the designs. Some researchers argue they were religious pathways, perhaps created to be seen by sky gods rather than humans. Others suggest they were astronomical markers or part of fertility rituals connected to water sources in the arid desert environment. Science has yet to give a definitive answer, but so far, there's no direct evidence linking the Nazca Lines to anything extraterrestrial. Another example often cited by ancient astronaut theorists is the Dogon tribe's knowledge of the Sirius star system, including the invisible Sirius B, long before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. Skeptics counter that this knowledge could have come from contact with modern astronomers or travelers before anthropologists recorded the Dogon traditions in the 20th century. They argue that oral traditions often absorb new information over time, so what seems like ancient knowledge might be a more recent addition interpreted as old. However, this explanation doesn't fully convince everyone, especially since the Dogon myths describe the star system in ways that align eerily well with modern science. When it comes to ancient texts describing flying machines or fiery chariots, scholars often interpret these stories symbolically rather than literally. They argue that myths like the Indian Vimanas or Ezekiel's wheel in the Bible are products of religious imagination, poetic storytelling, or metaphorical visions rather than eyewitness accounts of spacecraft. From a psychological perspective, humans have always used the imagery of the sky to represent gods, power, and transcendence. So, It is not surprising that many ancient myths place their deities among the stars without assuming extraterrestrial contact. Modern engineers have also weighed in on the precision of ancient structures like Pumapunku in Bolivia, where massive stones are cut with remarkable accuracy. While ancient astronaut theorists claim only advanced technology could achieve this, archaeologists suggest that with enough time, skill, and simple tools like stone hammers, chisels, and sand for polishing, ancient builders could have created surprisingly precise work. Experimental archaeology has even replicated some techniques, showing that while difficult, it wasn't impossible using the tools available at the time. Astronomers, too, often push back against the extraterrestrial hypothesis by pointing out the vast distances between stars and planets. Even with modern technology, traveling between star systems would require unimaginable energy and time. Skeptics argue that the idea of aliens visiting Earth thousands of years ago assumes capabilities far beyond anything we've observed in physics or space travel. They ask why such advanced beings would help humans build temples or teach farming instead of leaving behind undeniable evidence of their presence, like technology or written records beyond human capability. On the other hand, scientists also uncover mysteries that keep the debate alive. Archaeologists continue to find sites older and more sophisticated than previously believed, like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a massive stone temple complex dating back over 11,000 years, thousands of years before Stonehenge or the pyramids. Its discovery rewrote the timeline of human civilization, proving that advanced architecture and organized religion existed far earlier than scholars thought possible. If our understanding of history can change so dramatically with one discovery, what else might we be missing? Even DNA research adds layers of intrigue. Studies show sudden leaps in human evolution, such as the rapid growth of the human brain around 200,000 years ago. Some scientists attribute this to environmental pressures or genetic mutations, while ancient astronaut theorists speculate about possible outside influence. Mainstream science dismisses the alien idea as unnecessary, but the timing of these evolutionary jumps still sparks curiosity about whether there is more to the story than natural selection alone. Ultimately, modern science walks a fine line between explaining mysteries with evidence and acknowledging that many questions about our past remain unanswered. For every theory debunked, another discovery seems to challenge what we thought we knew about ancient civilizations, their capabilities, and their understanding of the world around them. So, after exploring the ancient astronaut theory from every angle, the mysterious monuments, the sudden bursts of knowledge in early civilizations, the artifacts that seem centuries ahead of their time, the myths and legends describing sky beings, and the ongoing debates between believers and skeptics, we re-left standing at a crossroads between history and mystery. On one side, science tells us humanity achieved these feats through ingenuity, determination, and trial and error over thousands of years. On the other side, the similarities in stories across cultures, the precision in architecture, and the unexplained knowledge of the stars leave us wondering if there is a missing chapter in our history books. Maybe extraterrestrials really did visit Earth long ago, shaping our civilizations and inspiring the myths we still tell today. Or maybe our ancestors were far more advanced and capable than we've ever imagined, leaving behind clues that continue to puzzle us because we've underestimated them for centuries. Either way, the mysteries remain unsolved, and perhaps that's what keeps this topic so captivating, the idea that the answers might still be out there, waiting for us to uncover them. Because whether it was gods, aliens, or simply brilliant humans lost to time, one thing is certain: the story of our past is far bigger, far stranger, and far more mysterious than we were ever taught in school. And maybe, just maybe, we've only begun to scratch the surface of the truth hidden in our ancient world.